All right. What is up, everyone? And
Hello.
welcome to another episode at the Ronnie Asani Show. Joining me today is the great Sandra Irving. Sandra, just a bit of an introduction about yourself. Sandra is passionate about transformation, data, human potential, growth, and change.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah, spot on.
Cool. Your mission is to enable entrepreneurial excellence through unconventional learning. I love that line.
Thank you.
Pretty cool. Over the last 7 years, working in change and transformation, along with experience in organizational development, Sandra brings a unique outlook on how to sustainably achieve optimal performance for organizations. You also work as a coach, or have worked, not quite sure, project manager and a trusted advisor, which is pretty awesome. You're focused on two main things right now. Your job in the Entourage with Jack as an Entrepreneurial Development Manager. And so pretty much everyone in Australia and beyond knows about the Entourage, but you guys work with 6, 7, and 8-figure business owners and entrepreneurs to help them scale their business to the next level. You are also working on your startup or new business, which is called Network Well, which is an Australian-owned wellness provider business that improves the well-being of individuals through the Journey to Wellness online program. Amazing stuff. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Sorry, that was a very long introduction.
No, it's fine.
Yeah.
You encompassed much of what I do, and I'm glad to be here. I'm grateful for this opportunity to share and showcase what we do at the Entourage and at Network Well.
Amazing. What is up, everyone? This is Ronnie, your host of the Ronnie Asani Show. My number one goal in this show is to bring you some of the most amazing and accomplished individuals in the business world to share with you some real, raw, and authentic business insights. We sit down and talk in a casual setting, nothing too serious, yet we unpack some of the most incredible ideas, concepts, and best practices. So please sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Oh, and don't forget to share the love. Like, share, and subscribe. Gracias, amigos. Thank you for coming here. And I guess for anyone who's watching, maybe, and we discussed this before, we can go over two main topics today. The first one is the mind of the entrepreneur and addressing it from like the interpersonal and personal development, which is something you're super passionate about. And you were sharing with me earlier that your view of what an entrepreneur is to constantly work on themselves, to develop themselves and better themselves and help others through the journey of their self-improvement. And then the other part of the episode, we can kind of go over some of the not so much soft skills, but hard skills of, what entrepreneurs need to have and work on to help scale the business. So, yeah.
Sounds good.
What would you like to start with?
Where would we like to start? Wow, thank you for the introduction. Oh my gosh, what's left to say? So for me, I'm happy to start with what's personally been interesting for me through my experience, and that's just been learning about and being open-minded to understanding our own experience as individuals and people. And so really over the last, however many years I've been alive, I won't give away too much. Over the last however many years of being alive, I've pursued becoming the best version of myself. A journey of rediscovery is what I call it.
I like that.
Learning and unlearning behaviors that enable me to become a better person, and that brings the question of what's a good better person. And a better person for me is someone living out my divine truth. And what's my divine truth? My divine truth is what's intrinsically internal for me and what's true for me. So for me, for me, it's been about living that journey on for myself. And the reason why I do this is because I want to be able to work with people in a way that inspires them for them to become a better version for themselves. And so that's why I've done what I've done throughout my life. That's why I surround myself with people like the Entourage and Jack DeLosa, because being able to have a value-centered contribution in this world is something that motivates me. And so I work on being able to, the data, you mentioned being able to discover the research and the data of the specific circumstances that enabled me to have a conversation with someone, not just based on my opinion, but based on validity of this research done by people who have insight into different areas of life. And so that's what I'm here. That's what I'm here to do. I'm here to share the research and the insights and the wisdom of professors and of people before us who have discovered and uncovered ways of working in a world where we can impact each other positively. And increase the levels of happiness in the world.
I love it.
Yeah.
Just quickly, can
Sure.
I please ask you to move a little bit that way so you can show the camera a little bit? I mean, that's cool. Yeah, perfect. So
Sure.
that's really interesting and a great way to sort of go over why, you're doing what you're doing. That's super awesome. My question is, was there, for some people, there's a ticking point, or there's an event, or there's something that happened in their lives that was just like, they hit a switch.
Sure.
But for some people, it's just, they're born curious about a lot of things. So it's a gradual sort of journey or process where, the more they uncover things, the more they get interested into the topic and the more they get involved and whatnot. For you, was there a specific moment that made you flip a switch?
Okay.
Or was it just a gradual sort of love for what you just mentioned?
Yeah. For me, good question. Thank you. You're welcome. For me, it was a bit of both, a natural progression of curiosity in understanding who I am. And a series of events throughout my life that have encouraged me to pursue that curiosity. So it was almost a bit of both, if I may say. And so, some being... living throughout my life, it's been a journey of wanting to uncover why things are the way they are, and being really curious about why things are the way they are and why they work, and asking the philosophical questions about life. And so,
what's purpose?
What's
Why are we here?
What's the meaning of
Who am
life?
I?
Who am I? Having these existential crises, and so throughout that process and throughout those questions, they've led me to lots of different understandings and lots of different insights as to why things are the way they are, and why people perceive things to be the way they are, and different perspectives, and just not taking them as truth, but understanding them as a perspective. And so I think that for me, it's been a series of events, and I know there's going to be more events in my life. They're going to keep encouraging me to keep pursuing different areas of life, and so that's what it's been for me.
Yeah, I'm always fascinated by how people got to where they are. Whether it was more external things, excuse me, or whether it was internal. Woke up one day and. Have you read the book Power of Now?
Yes, I have.
Okay. The author...
Eckhart, what's his first name?
The way to say his name is a bit... Eckhart Tolle?
Eckhart Tolle, there you are.
Tolle, yeah. So I read the book a couple of times, actually read it one time, and I listened to it a couple of times.
Okay.
And he was describing how he came about in his journey and how he started understanding everything from what the ego is and and mindfulness and all that stuff. And it was like one night he was super down, things were not going well in his life and all that stuff, and he woke up with this bliss. So it was like something changed in that morning, like he just stopped thinking for quite a bit.
Okay.
And he just sort of like let it go. But anyway, going back to my point, like he's just an example. And then you have people like David Goggins, who I tune into. I'm not sure if you know who he is, but he, you know, he's someone who had a very, very tough sort of upbringing. He was overweight, and you know, he turned his life so much. He joined the Marines, and now he's like, and he started going into the marathons, ultra marathons, and you know, running for days and days and days. He broke a lot of records, including pull-ups. Like he's the world's you know, highest record for amount of pull-ups in a day. I think it was like 4,000, 3,000, something like that. Something crazy.
That's a lot of pull-ups.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, now that you mention the things that, you know, experiences that have motivated people to seek, you know, their own personal development. There are definitely, like I mentioned, some events in my life that have encouraged me to pursue, being a better version of myself. And, you know, I've have close relationships with mental health in my life. Suicide, psychosis, alcoholism, drug addiction, physical violence, stress, anxiety, low self-esteem. Like there's so many things that I could mention that I've had to work through as a person. That has enabled me to seek ways of not just psychological safety, but ways of living in joy and love and happiness.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for asking me.
Well, that's why you're here, for me to ask you. All right. So I guess you touched on, before we started, this whole thing of the journey of an entrepreneur is to better themselves. And I do agree with that. I think that is something that maybe not a lot of people see that way. May not disagree with, but they may not see that way. And I think it's a very fresh and interesting perspective that viewing yourself as an entrepreneur is not just like coming up with the next great idea that's going to change the world, coming up with the next Airbnb or the next Facebook or the next X, Y, and Z. It's also, who are you as a person? And how are you improving yourself as an individual in the community that you're in? And as a byproduct of being a better person, the organization, the business that you run has better impact on other people. Is that what?
Definitely, yeah. A business will never outgrow its founder. You know, if you're flourishing as a person and as an individual and living through your own purpose and your own mission, then your business will organically grow in that direction. I've seen it, you know, firsthand at the Entourage. You know, we work with entrepreneurs on building their entrepreneurial mindset and how they show up in the world, because that trickles down into the business and into the culture. And so my background, as you touched on earlier, is in learning and development and leadership. And so for me, understanding the capability of the individuals in an organization impacts what they do in the world. And so if you've got a founder, you know, if you've got a triangle and, you know, you imagine an organization and the point of the triangle is the founder and the entrepreneur. This entrepreneur then spreads all of their energy, for so to speak, all of their energy throughout the whole business. And so what that triangle does, and we have these triangles popping up in the world and building out different kind of elements of how we work
together economically.
For sure, together. And so for an entrepreneur, it's moving the world forward through entrepreneurship. You know, the microphone, the headset, the cup, the table, the chair, you know, Jack Delosa says himself, the things that we are experiencing in this world have come to fruition because of entrepreneurship. And so it wouldn't be the case if we didn't have people out there who are doing what they're doing in a way to provide for the economy. And if if the entrepreneur is providing to the economy in a narcissistic way or an egotistical way or an arrogant way, then unfortunately the experience that we have in society becomes tainted by the dilutedness of happiness and joy. So we just have to consider how our impact affects not just the people that we work with, but also our economy and society.
I think the market also decides. And when I say the market, it's not just customers buying a product. So if you make a product that with selfishness, and when I say selfishness, I'm talking about like not selfishness as like a bunch of friends sitting in, you know, I want to go to the restaurant that I like. I'm talking about being self-centered as an entrepreneur or as an organization, not really going into and trying to understand what your customer really wants. Right? Okay. So if you develop your business and your products and what you sell with the lack of like deep understanding of what they want, that will materialize. And the market is gonna let you know. And the way of doing that is by not buying your product. But when I say the market, is also your employees. So how are you, you know, or your team or whoever who works with you, every single person involved in the process, if they do not like you or look up to you or respect you, obviously that impacts the whole thing. So going back to what you were saying, it's that triangle, you being in the entrepreneur at the top and cascading down everything from vision, mission, you know, trust, energy, everything. It's a ripple effect on pretty much everything, even investors, everyone.
I like what you're saying about the two elements of how the entrepreneurship journey impacts everyone. You know, the first thing that you touched on was the vision, mission, and values of the organization. So in the Entourage and at the Entourage, we have a workshop around what is the vision for the organization, and there are specific types of things that we need to consider when building a vision. You know, who are we showing up and servicing? Who are they? Who are they? People? Are they entrepreneurs? Who are they? And so it's about, you know, the vision, mission, and values of the organization, and then you've also got the second piece, which is product to market fit. You know, are we positioning the product to a specific type of person? You know, are we focusing on perhaps people who have stress, anxiety, and depression? Are we working with that type of person? And if we are, what's the problem that we need to be able to address with them? Is it self-esteem? Is it happiness? Is it joy? Is it, you know, so the two things that you just mentioned, I really like that, because they are instrumental in making an effective impact on the world in a positive way.
Yep. When we talk about the entrepreneurial mindset and the mindset of an entrepreneur, how do we like dissect that? And if we were to go to pick the most, for the lack of a better term, perfect entrepreneur, or the most experienced or the most optimized entrepreneur's mind,
interesting.
What are the things that we'll find inside that mind?
I would reference a book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Franklin Covey. And I would say that to be an effective person, an entrepreneur, to have the characteristics of the 7 principles of the 7 habits of highly effective people would be great. It'd be amazing. If we could all master the 7 habits of highly effective people, it would be phenomenal. But if we were to specifically focus on just the mindset of an entrepreneur, I'd say you'd look for a growth mindset, someone who's looking to excel and grow, an open mindset. I'd say you'd look for openness. I'd say you'd look for curiosity. So I'm just going to kind of spitball some characteristics here of things that I see in successful entrepreneurs, and happy to elaborate on any of them. And I'd say compassion. And that's not to say you can't be an entrepreneur without mastering any of these characteristics. I'm sure there's loads of entrepreneurs who've mastered these characteristics. This is just my perspective and what I've seen of successful entrepreneurs. I'd say clarity. I'd say rationale.
Yeah.
I'd say resilience, one of the big ones.
Which we all needed
in 2020. Yeah, there wouldn't go a day
so we've got
in life without me needing resilience, honestly. Sometimes it's just can get real tough. Life can get curveballs and COVIDs and vids.
The vids.
So yeah, definitely think that resilience, if I was to say what would be the number one characteristics or trait of a successful entrepreneur, it would say resilience for sure. Yeah. Mental, emotional and physical toughness.
Yeah.
Being able to withstand adversity and to pursue the meaningful contribution through adversity for sure.
I wish there was almost like a term that can combine. I do agree with you. I wish there was a term that can combine. And maybe there is, I just don't know it.
Make one up.
Maybe it's just there, but I don't know. Resilience plus being quick on your feet to adapt and go about things in a different way.
Yeah.
So like being responsive, being, open to other routes or ways of doing things. Combined with because resilience to me is super important.
Yeah.
But it's more about when I think about resilience, it's like, okay, I'm able to deal and live with and withstand and digest the circumstances that are happening around my life, whether it's in work or whatever, and deal with them. But it's, to me, it doesn't really tap into the adaptability. Adaptability.
I think that's a perfect word. Adaptability, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Not trying to be philosophical or anything, but
I know exactly what you're saying. Adaptability. Yeah, that's a great word to encompass a characteristic of a successful entrepreneur, being able to adapt with the times, not just being resilient, like you're saying, in the face of adversity, but being able to adapt to new environments and new circumstances. Life is forever changing. If we want to get scientific and we want to talk about how often things change, it's constant. Change is constant. Change is the only thing that's constant.
Yep.
It's one of the only things, I should say, that's constant. And so being able to adapt is super important. And this is actually a leadership quality. And an entrepreneur is a leader. And so when we talk about leadership, one of the biggest things in leadership, actually, drawing on my experience with leadership consulting, is adaptability and how to be able to navigate through those challenging times in a way that allows people to come on board and to bring on people onto your mission. So that's great. Thank you.
So growth growth mindset is very critical, and this is one of the traits I definitely see a major parallel and connection between working on self-improvement as an entrepreneur and the direct impact of those improvements on your business and the entrepreneurial journey that you're in. Because to me, growth is all about, it starts with knowing and thinking that anything is possible. Okay. So it's like removing all these barriers that you set in your mind, right?
The limiting beliefs.
Yeah. Sure. Growth, that is like the foundation to me. When you talk about growth, is this possible? That's the first question. And if it is, okay, then how do we go there?
Yeah.
And most of the time people struggle at the first question, which is it possible? Because of the limiting self-beliefs. And I think a major part of self-improvement or self-development is getting rid of all the limiting self-beliefs about yourself.
Yeah.
And so if that's a habit in you to destroy self-beliefs about yourself, about others, about the world, whatever, that is also going to be part of how you operate as an entrepreneur in your business.
Yeah, for sure. People reach glass ceilings in when they stop working on the constructs of their own self. We all have a self construct. We've all worked out, through nature and nurture, through our genetics and through our upbringing and through our experience, we've developed who we are.
Yeah.
So Sandra Irving is this person who's been not manipulated, but molded, I should say, molded in a way to become a certain person. And there comes a time in our lives where we need to take responsibility and accountability for who we've become and say, is this who I want to be? Is this Sandra Irving? Is this who I want to be? And is this person or this self-construct that I've developed over time going to get me to where I want to go? And so we may have a goal or a direction, or we may not. And we may have a goal or direction where we want to go, and we work out that we're not, and for lack of better, not good enough to get us there, and that's okay. We can be not good enough to get us there, but we're not good. It's not to say that we don't have the potential to be able to get us there. We can get there. We have that within us. We just have to unlearn the things we've learned, the bad habits, the drinking, the smoking, the oversleeping, the overeating, the gossiping, the social media for countless hours, the Netflix and chill, the certain habits that we have.
Give everything away except Netflix.
There's certain things that we've done that, not that it's not good enough and you can't be happy living that lifestyle. Yes, you can. But if you have an internal desire to want to do something in life, and these are the character, the behaviors that you're exhibiting, then how are you going to be able to develop to where you want to go? Yep. We have to understand that to be able to live a certain lifestyle means we have to behave in certain ways. And for us to accept ourselves, we have to say, I'm accepting who I am. I'm accepting who I am for the characteristics and behaviors that I exhibit. Yep. And complete acceptance of self is amazing. And then moving forward to progress to a specific goal is, amazing as well. And some people can be happy with where they're at, and that's great. But some people can also want to progress and move forward into a different direction to achieve more from themselves. So each day, keep moving, keep chipping away at it. Yep. And it may be just something small. It may be just something drinking, the 8 glasses of water that we have to drink. And why do we have to drink it? Because we're made up of 80% of water. So science has proven to us that the reason we drink water is because our body composition is made up of mostly of water. So to feel good and to have a specific level of I'd say
vibration.
Perfect. Thank you for the word. I wasn't sure if I could share that type of.
Go for it.
Great, but so we have.
Well, we'll start doing telepathy as well.
Hey, I mean, we could talk about entangled particles, but I don't know if we'll get out of here in the next 15 minutes. So our body has a specific composition, and we have different vibrations from different frequencies of what we consume, and whether that's water, like I was saying, water has a specific frequency, and it puts us in balance. And so, to bring it back to the optimal reason of why, it's because we're wanting to progress forward and feel good within ourselves and feel at that different vibrational level. Yeah.
That was quite deep.
I know. We went. You opened up the can of worms. I'm happy to any time.
Might have to do another episode one time. Talk about other things, because it sounds like we've got plenty of things to talk about. So the second one that you mentioned that I really like is openness. What is openness to you, and how do you rank it in the things or the traits that you need to have? And what is the impact of having openness as an individual or an entrepreneur in your environment?
Yeah. I'm going to reference a book. Michael A. Singer, The Surrender Experiment. Okay. Michael A. Singer is a phenomenal person. He's a professor, engineer, professor at a university in engineering. and he meditated for most of his life. And the decision for meditation for most of his life was because he wanted solitude and peace in, you know, the monkey mind, the chatter. He wanted just complete peace. And so he did this for many years, and his prophecy was to surrender to the unfolding of life. And I found that so profound, because when I learnt from Michael Asinger through his two books, The Untethered Soul and The Surrender Experiment, what I learned from him was to be open to the experience of life, right? And so it's interesting because I think it's 18, don't quote me on this because I'm not sure if it's the right number, but I think it's 18 million years ago, or 18 billion years ago, 18 billion years ago, the world was created. Okay, so this is what science is, either 13 or 18.
It's definitely more than 2,000 years.
It's about 13 or 18 billion years ago the world was created. And so we all know we're created from stardust, right? Our body composition is of specific chemicals that were created from the combustion of stars. So we are essentially stardust. And so what it brings us to is this world was created before we were even here. So for us as individuals, how much control do we have over the circumstances in our life? Little to none. We have influence on the choices we make in those circumstances, and we have influences on the choices of our experience and the way we experience life. But life was created so long before we were even around, you know? So just be open to and enjoy the experience of what's unfolding for you, because it's magnificent. It's been created for us. And so for us to be able to get upset over, you know, something that happens in our environment, it's just us choosing to be upset over that. It's our perception is to be upset over that. We could, like you said, what Kevin Hart does, bring it back to our friend Kev. You know, just find the positive in it, because it's there and it won't go anywhere. It will change eventually, because everything's impermanent. It's always going to change. Things always are going to change. But who are you doing any good by being upset over it? No one. You won't do yourself any good of it. You won't do your friends any good with it. You won't do your family any good for it. So make the decision to say, okay, I know that this is going to change. It's impermanent. I want to make the choice to be open to the experience and just to allow it to unfold, because what may come from it may be something that we didn't even expect it to be. You know, we may not have an expectation of what's going to come to fruition from this circumstance. But then a week or two later, you're like, oh my goodness, if that didn't happen, this wouldn't have happened. How magnificent. So, you know, it's like, come show me more of the things that I need to be open to, you know. Absolutely. Bring it on. I want to see what it is. And so the thing that I actually like to do in these certain circumstances, and this is another thing that ties into openness, is if something comes up and I feel some resistance, let's say, to the experience, it's like, oh, interesting. Okay, so what is it about my self-construct that is finding that the resistance to that? Where is it in my beliefs? Where is it in my perception that has aversion to what this experience is? It's like, oh, okay, I understand. I don't like the smell of tea. I'm just making it up. I love tea, but I don't like the smell of tea. Why don't I like the smell of tea? Because one time I had tea and I smelt that smell and it hurt, and whatever it was, right? Because I clung or had aversion to that specific scent. It's a sense, the experience, right? And so being open to things and acknowledging, okay, what is it in my self-construct that's having aversion to that? For me, it's allowing it to unfold, and it stops suffering. You know, it stops our suffering. For us as individuals, life is just a series of suffering. It's just constant suffering, you know, and we have the choice of how much suffering we can have. So being open to these experiences allows us to alleviate the suffering. And then allows us to be able to reframe it in a way that thinks of the circumstance to be a positive gift. Of, okay, this circumstance is now here for me to be able to alleviate myself from previous belief patterns that cause suffering. If that's making sense. Yeah,
it does make a lot of sense. I'm wondering, how do we take that, what you just described, and apply it to in the business world? you as an entrepreneur
Sure.
being open,
Uh-huh.
apart from the personal side, but also like in your day-to-day business activities, being an open person, what impact does that have on you and your business?
Oh, some of the most amazing experiences. I'll come back to Michael A. Singer. Michael A. Singer isn't just someone who meditated for 25 years. He turned into a board seat. He developed a medical device company in the US that became number one, and he was on the board of a multi-million-dollar business because he surrendered to life. And so for me personally, I surrendered to the experience of serving. And so what that means is working for the Entourage and working with entrepreneurs to understand what they're trying to achieve, what their mission is, what their vision is, what their vision and mission is, what they stand for, and how they want to get there. So I spend most of my time each day with entrepreneurs like yourself and myself, understanding how their business operates, what they're trying to achieve, and then we work on building out a roadmap to bridge the gap through the Entourage. So the Entourage works with this entrepreneur on achieving the milestones that are going to get them to where they're going. And so without me being open and hearing what the entrepreneur was trying to achieve, I would just be projecting my own vision and my own mission onto that person. Right? Because at the end of the day, what that person's trying to achieve is within their own self-construct. It's within their own divine truth. If I didn't surrender to what that experience was for them, then I would be owning their experience.
I think openness as well is being open and accepting of others' ideas, suggestions, and ways of going about your business. And so if you're someone who, and it's kind of hard, if you're an entrepreneur who built everything from the ground and you're starting to hire more people, you have a very good idea about how to run your business because you put everything together from day one. It's your baby. And so although an entrepreneur is someone who must have an open mind, because, you know, for you to come up with something that is successful, you must have, you know, sat down one day and said, you know what, I like the status quo, but if the world can, you know, have this product or this business or this service, so you must have an open mind anyway. But the point I'm trying to get at is creating something yourself from scratch makes you by default the person who knows the most about it. And when you know the most about something,
a lot of ego attached to that.
A lot of ego. And you're less likely to be open about going about the business in different ways.
I understand.
So your marketing manager comes up and says, hey, you know, we should look at, you know, running this campaign, or, you know, your creative director comes up and says, you know, what you know, we're thinking of doing this ad that way, or your, you know, whoever.
So true.
So, and I think this openness, not just on a personal level, but in the way you're able to listen to all the ideas that are around and make the best out of them is super instrumental.
100%. Napoleon Hill, the Collective Mastermind. That's what you're reminding me of when I'm hearing you speak about this. You know, just drawing.
Did you guys hear that? Napoleon Hill. What are you dropping all these books on us today? How many books have you dropped on us so far?
They just come up.
Every question. I'll start with a book.
No, the Napoleon Hill wrote a book and he utilizes a methodology called the Collective Mastermind. And so the Collective Mastermind is the premise of Network Well. So we're a network of well-being professionals who come together to be able to develop a specific way of improving someone's well-being, whether it's individual, whether it's in a collective environment. And so, you know, having that mindset of being open to understanding the experience in the room or in the world, now that technology, right, in the world, is amazing, because it gives us the power to be able to learn things differently and to understand things differently from different perspectives. And one of the main things I love about the Entourage is that Jack Delos has created an organisation
Mm-hmm.
where everyone shows up with an open mind and a willingness to learn. You know, we all value education. And so we come on board and we have the opportunity to share what we understand and why we see things, and then explore it and unpack it in a collaborative environment. And so what that does is that attracts entrepreneurs who are wanting to show up and learn from people who know best practice, because we've done the research and we've found what is best practice to scale a business from 6 to 7 figures or 7 to 8 figures and beyond. So yeah, I think openness, now that we've come back to it, is a great thing to have as an entrepreneur.
Yeah. I am a massive fan of Jack and the Entourage and what you guys do.
Jack, my man. He's great.
If you are listening to this episode and you are an entrepreneur and you want to make it big, contact the Entourage. Okay, cool. So clarity is another interesting one. What are your thoughts on that?
Clarity. So clarity for me would be being able to hold. Okay, so we can. This can take.
Don't drop another book on us.
I won't drop another book. I won't drop another book. But what I would say is there is a practice that brings clarity to an individual, and that practice is called Vapasana. It's a type of meditation taught by Buddha over 25 centuries ago. It is the dissolving of bondages in our energy field.
Interesting.
And so we can dive into that a little bit more, but I'll keep it high level.
Vipassana?
Vipassana.
Okay.
Vipassana. There is a retreat in the Blue Mountains, which I've done most recently.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's absolutely phenomenal. It's definitely changed part of who I am, for sure.
How long was it? 9 days?
It was 10 days.
10 days. And you couldn't check your phone?
I did check my phone every now and then, but it was only to just check if there was any family emergency. But no, the rules are no checking of the phones.
Yeah. So sleeping, let's say, assuming you sleep 8 hours a day or 7 hours, like whatever.
Yeah.
What do you guys do the remaining, like 16
What we do
hours?
the remaining of the day, it was honestly 9 hours of meditation a day. Breakfast, lunch, sleeping, and laying in the sun and walking.
And when you're meditating, are you all like doing a group meditation?
Yeah, they had a large hall or auditorium, if you will, where everyone sat in their own places. The places were at least 1.5 meters apart, considering COVID.
We're not 1.5, are we?
Yeah, I think we may be. Maybe
We'll
just shy, actually. You
it.
may be right, yeah. And so they had places in the hall, and what we would do was we'd just sit cross-legged with a blanket for 1 hour sittings 9 times a day.
I will lose my mind.
That's the point. We're supposed to be losing the mind.
I'll lose it completely. It's not coming back.
It was challenging for most people, but what it does on a scientific level is energetically we have, I should say, we're all built up of particles and atoms, right? That vibrate at specific frequencies. And so what happens when we have a specific reaction to something is we can either have aversion or clinging to it. So we can either cling to something or we could push something away, and that happens at a sensation level, like at a physiological level. And so when that happens, the actual subatomic particles compound. And I'll bring you back to why this is relevant in a moment of clarity.
Sure.
But what happens is they compound, right? So in our body, when you have like a piece of tension in your arm and you're like, oh God, that's sore. It's not just the muscle, it's the subatomic particles compounding, right? Because our body is made of muscle, but muscle's just an element of science. Stardust, right? And so this compound and energy in our body are just sore, etc., and painful and whatnot, and they can be pleasurable too. You can have a joyous, like your funny bone is supposed to, no, it's not really. When you hit it, it's not funny.
It's not.
But so we compound this energy, whether it's for pleasure or pain, aversion or clinging. And what happens is throughout time, we have an experience where we're talking with someone, and have you ever had a thought just come to your mind and you're like, where does this thought come from? It's because
all the time.
All the time, right? It's because it's actually a reaction or a response to the compounded energy in our physiology.
Really?
So it's
Okay.
always the sensation first. We feel something first before we think, right? Our mind is just a response to the actual the patterns that have been stored in our body. So it's like storing memory in our body, okay?
Yeah.
And so I'm sure you've heard this in different ways many times throughout your life. And so the whole purpose of Vapasana is to be an observer of the sensation. So for an hour in meditation, what we do is, the body scan that we went through earlier. So remove the white light, because that was visualization for us. Focusing on the actual sensations of your body. Vipassana is where you do a complete body scan and you observe the sensation. So you may find pain, you may and very well will, most people do, very painful sensations in the body. And we train the mind to observe it with no response. So when we go out into the world and we have a conversation with someone who potentially, let's just say it could be someone who's hurt your feelings before, okay? It could be someone who's hurt your feelings before. And
Told you no good.
Yeah, they said something that hurt you, okay? And for whatever reason it was, you had a bad experience with that person. When you see that person again, you're going to have a sensation that is it's a gross, painful sensation. And then the thoughts will flow, okay?
Yeah.
And then the thoughts will flow and the thoughts will flow. But if you dissolve that compounded energy, you won't have any thought when you see that person. So at an energetic and a physiological level, you're dissolving the belief patterns in your mind by allowing them not to be fed by the compounded energy. So that's what clarity is for me.
Every time you do that and talk about compounded energy, I can't stop thinking about bodybuilders thing. What? What is she on about?
What is she on about?
Compounded energy over here.
And so it's interesting. We can build muscle and we can add more protein and we can build muscle while having a fluid energy field. We can do that. That's possible. But for us to have clarity in our mind, we have to allow the free-flowing energy to flow through our body without any stimuli for our mind to be able to respond or react to. And so that for me is clarity. It's someone being able to dissolve those compounded experiences in their body, whatever they were. And then it's an active process not to create anymore as well. So once you've dissolved them, we still have to live. So going out into the world and having conversations, we have to stop clinging to a scenario. You get a present, it's so joyous, and oh my God, I love it so much. And then you lose it and then you cry. And it's like the reason for suffering was because we lost something that we clung to. And so when we lose something again, we're going to have that compounded energy that triggers that emotional feeling and then that thought, So this is why for me, clarity is a big thing, and that's where I'm progressively working toward. Yes, it is on the journey to for, so to speak, enlightenment. If you may have heard of enlightenment before, but for me, clarity is internal, mental, emotional, physical, and energetical clarity. Just being completely fluid in who I am.
Like Bruce Lee said, be like water.
Be like water.
That's very interesting and a very, very, I guess, deep perspective on it. I was more thinking when you said clarity about being clear on what your business stands for and what you want to do in your life. I'll drop a book on you. Okay. Start with why.
Yes, I just bought that book a few days ago. I've heard it's
Simon
great.
Sinek.
Have you read it?
It's amazing.
Yeah, okay.
I listened to it.
Okay, great.
Yeah. And so he talks about, the entire book, and he shares a lot of references to, entrepreneurs and businesses, including Virgin and, Richard Branson and many, many other businesses, where they made leaps and bounds because they were absolutely clear on why they were doing it. The whole, and why is like your vision, your mission, and all this stuff. But it's, why are we doing this? Why are we, and making sure that every single person in the organization understands why we're doing it. And I'm not going to spoil more of the book because you're going to
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. But like, it just shows, like, even in some industries like the automotive industry and even the airlines, how, same companies, like two companies doing the same marketing strategy, same, way of advertising, same business model, everything is the same, but one was very clear about why they're doing it.
Yeah.
And why they're doing what they're doing. And the other one wasn't. And how, one took off and the other one just collapsed. And so going back to clarity, I think for me, that was a really, really interesting perspective on it. And I think talking about the entrepreneur as an individual and how to improve yourself, that really talks to that point. The flip side to that is, or the other side to that is, how do you take that clarity on a physiological level, like you described, and also take it to being very, very clear about your mission and your organization's mission?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. Bringing it into business context, away from the entrepreneur's personal journey and how it, like you mentioned before, how it cascades into a business, and is definitely through the person's, the business vision, mission and values of the organization. And I bring it back again to the workshop that Jack Delosa runs. And if you know the Entourage, you know the Vision Mission Values workshop that Jack runs. It's an amazing day. People have said that it's bringing them so much value to, and so, just really getting clarity on what you do, why you do it, and who you serve, and how you do it. And so, that workshop's absolutely amazing. I'm thinking back to it now, and it's just, it's brought me much clarity to my business, to network well. Not just because it's helped me get clear on who we serve and how we serve people, but it actually is, it's getting concise enough so that when I share it with someone else, they understand it. Right? Because we can have, these amazing visions of what we want to do and how we want to help people. But when we try and communicate it to someone, it may not be conveyed in a way that they understand. And so getting really concise is a great way to be able to convey your vision so it can cascade in your organization and be taken beyond you, because being an entrepreneur isn't just about being able to serve the people for yourself, because then you'd be doing everything. It's about being able to get a group of people along on the journey with you to be able to drive that mission forward. And so Jack Delosa has some amazing questions to ask any entrepreneur about their business vision, mission and values in order for it to be really concise. He asks 4 or 5 different questions for both vision, mission and values, and these questions allow us to think about specific things that we're doing and why we're doing them and who we're serving. And then what happens is, at the end of the workshop, brings it all together so we can actually completely craft our concise vision, mission and values. And without that, we can be a successful business, but we may not be able to communicate exactly what we're here for, and the people that work for us may not be able to communicate exactly what we're here for.
It's the difference between good and great.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're wrapping up. So I'd love for you to share with us a few things about Network Well.
Sure.
And what you've been up to and where do you see it going?
Sure.
And how can people get in touch with you if they want to be part of it?
Great. So Network Well is part of 2 things. I mentioned earlier Napoleon Hill, the Collective Mastermind. So Network Well is a wellness consultancy that's been developed off the back of wellness professionals collaborating on specific methods and models that help people improve their well-being. Okay. So research rich. Simple models to implement in our personal lives in order to get to work towards optimal well-being. Whether it's your mental health, whether it's your emotional health, whether it's your physical health. Those 3 areas are the 3 elements of wellness. You have 8 dimensions of well-being. Financial, social, emotional, physical, etc., etc.
How happy your belly is.
How happy our belly is, yes. So, physical health definitely is a big part, our gut health. And so Network Well encompasses a holistic approach to well-being, because what we've found is there's many ways in the industry of developing our well-being. We can see a chiropractor, we can see a therapist, we can see a nutritionist, we can see a kinesiologist, we can see a meditation practitioner, we can see a yoga instructor. There's so many ways of developing well-being nowadays, which is great because we've got so much variety. But sometimes what we want is to be able to simply improve our well-being. You know, most of the time we want a simple and easy process to go through that works on all areas of well-being. So it's an individualized approach at developing a person's well-being through Network Well. We have a corporate workshop where we provide a corporate setting for employees to be able to develop their well-being. As we know, well-being has a positive correlation to employee satisfaction and engagement, productivity, etc. So it's within best interest of any corporate organisation to invest in the well-being of their people. We've just spoke about how an entrepreneur, their well-being and their mindset improves the quality of the work that they produce. So can you imagine what that does for their employees? So that's Network Well as a corporate organisation. We have an online program which is for individuals to develop their well-being. This is also supported through coaching. So Sandra Livewell is my coaching wellness expert title. So personally, I can if you just type in www.networkwell.org, you'll find the corporate and individual workplace wellness organisation available to people to access and book into some time. Or if you have a look at Sandra, you can find Sandra Livewell under coaching there, and then that will be my personal program, which is called the Journey to Wellness. And the Journey to Wellness has a tribe of and community of a community of members who work on their well-being through the program. And so I also provide my support on an ongoing basis to all of those members to help them with their well-being.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you for being part of the Ronnie Osani Show.
I'm glad to be here. It was great.
Thank you so much. A lot of cool and interesting and value-adding topics and tips and tricks. That was really cool. I enjoyed it. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Go.